Mic check, mic check. 1, 2. Okie dokie, folks. Let's go ahead and which one of these is going to do the trick? Is it that one? Yeah. All right. So today is Tuesday the 14th. We are going to go over some questions for stuff that is due today or tonight or whatever. And then we're going to jump right into lesson 15. Okay, everything from the before time to let me turn that down. Everything from before to lesson 14. The deadline is going to be, or is, tonight at some point. I guess midnight or whenever get around to it. So let's go ahead and take a look at the calendar. We have the end of third quarter is Friday, and that's why we're getting everything in now. And that is it for deadline. We have a ton, Mr. Druzy and I have a ton of grading to do, obviously, and so that we can get your grades in on time. Mr. Druzy, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am, and I can hear you.
Great. Okay, so I suppose let's take a look at the, where was it? The question form stuff that is due today, and how far, lesson 14, bubble 10, I guess you answered that one, it looks like, since it is green. For some reason, when I run my favorite things app and press the button, it says text parameter value undefined. All right, let's take a look at it. Let's view code and run. Let's see here, do three things. Let's add something. Okay, so it's going to be, because it's not key, you have key down, you need, well, let's remix it. You need, this is where you need event, because it's event.key. We need event as the parameter. This is why you, that pops in. Let's see if that works. So, okay, yep, that was it. You just didn't have the event in the parameter that's referenced to. And we're, lesson 15 that we're going to start today has a lot of new, not new types, but new uses for parameters. And you can see, because in the function, it's referring to that parameter event, and it could be anything, but in this case, it comes in, the default is event, and that could be for mouse press or click or whatever, but there you were missing the event thing. Okay, class code for third period. How you're not in the class code for third period. Let's take a look at the class code for third period. The class code is that. This is the class code for third period. How do we get back to that? And there you go. Whoever that was, I already doing that this late, but that's fine. Better late than never, usually. Okay, do we make a slide for the explore task? Just like, yes, the explore task is your computational artifact, your digital thing can be, in the most straightforward, basic form of it is making a poster of your topic, but you can use PowerPoint or Google Slides, making a single slide with images and words and other arrows and text elements that explain whatever it is your topic is trying to communicate. For the explore task, doing social media as my computing innovation. Is there better focus on one specific social media like Instagram? Think about, I can't give you a direct answer, but think about the rubric lines, the questions you have to answer. You have to come up with an example of impacting society, economy, culture, and a digital security, what data is being used. If you're talking about specific data, you might want to be more specific. If you're talking about things in general, I don't know how to answer this without um, completely directing you. I would say look at the rubric and try to figure out how to shape what your answers are going to look like, and pick a topic that makes those answers easier to successfully complete. Okay, not that many questions. So we'll leave this open. If somebody has a question during class, during the stream, we can answer it at the end, but we are going to jump right in to lesson 15. And all this is going to go on fourth quarter. So we're going to do lesson 15, and then we will do the rest of unit 5, which is 15, 16, 17. And then we will do the other performance task, the create task, do a stream on expectations, going through the rubric, just like we did with the explore task. And then those two projects are going to make up the majority of the fourth quarter grade. Again, regardless of if you're taking the AP test, or that's to say you're doing the AP test fill-in, now that there's no actual multiple choice version of it. But that's going to be sort of the remainder of the fourth quarter. We'll have checkpoints and check-ins and answer sessions and that sort of thing. And so let's go ahead and get started. So we left off last time with using arrays as a way of organizing data. We use a variable. A variable is like a box that holds a single piece of information, be it a string of words or of letters or a value or anything. An array works like a variable, except it's a box with lots of little slots that can hold individual pieces of information, and you access those slots by their index. And the first index is index 0. And other than that, it's just treated like a variable referencing its index. Okay, but if you have a super long array, so far we've only worked with arrays of 3, 4, 5, like the pictures in the image scroller. If you have a long array, you need to be able to write code to process, sort through a list of however long, without having to write each line individually. That's the point of loops. So for lesson 15, we're going to bring back the for loop. For this many times do that. We're not going to do the worksheets, but we are going to apply the for loop to arrays as a way of processing large amounts of information and sorting and organizing, which is the whole point. And we're going to use functions to simplify things. So let's see what this guy has to say.
With lists, we can begin to store lots of data, and we can also think about writing code to process that data. For example, a list of the pixels in an image can be processed to change their colors to give the image a unique filtered look. A digital song file is actually just a list of waveform samples and can similarly be processed to apply digital effects. We know that computers are great at repeating commands in the form of loops, so when we want to process every item in a list in a similar way, we can use a loop to iterate through every item and take some action with it. Let's look at how we use loops to process lists. First, we can make a while loop to run a specific number of times by using a variable called count. This loop will run 6 times. We also know that lists have numbered indexes starting at 0, and since the variable count stores a number, we can use count as our index into the list. And since count changes every time through the loop, starting at 0 and going up by 1 until 5, this gives us a mechanism for accessing every item in a list. An easy first step when processing lists is to write a loop that prints out all the values in the list to make sure you are seeing everything. Let's do that here. We'll add a console.log statement in the loop and make the loop condition more general by removing the hard-coded value 6 and replacing it with the length of the list. Now, if the list size changes, our loop will still print everything out. Let's run it. This kind of looping structure, one that uses a variable to control the number of times the loop iterates, has 3 basic components to it. Creating and initializing a variable to use as a counter, some condition that checks the value of the counter each time through the loop, increasing the value of the counter by a set number for each iteration. This kind of structure is so common that many languages include the for loop to do just that. The for loop combines these components into a single line of code for convenience. The standard setup of a for loop looks like this. There is a lot going on here, but you can see it has the same basic components as the while loop above. It creates a counter variable called I, while I is less than 4. Add 1 to I every time through the loop. You might read a for loop out loud like this. For variable I starting at 0, while I is less than 4, I++. You can think of I as shorthand for index, and I++ is shorthand for increase the current value of I by 1. The value of I will come in handy when we use it to access each item of the list, just like we use the counter variable in the while loop. Note that I is just a convention and you can name it anything you want. Let's look at an example of using a for loop to go through every item in a list and doing something with each item. Here we have a list of red, green, and blue values for a very small image. We could brighten it up by adding 50 to every number in the list. In each iteration of the loop, we are getting the current value stored in the pixel list at index I, adding 50 to that number, and then updating the value at that same slot in the list to the new value. So the first time through the loop, I is 0, pixels at index I, or pixels at 0, is 28, 28 plus 50 is 78, pixels at index 0 is updated to be 78. The next time through the loop, I is 1, so pixels at index 1 will be accessed and updated in the same way. This will happen for each item in the list. With a for loop and a list of values, you have an easy way to process all of the items in a list. This is a foundational concept in computer science you will see over and over again, and it unlocks the power of dealing with lots of data.
All right, so there was a lot going on there. It hopefully will make more sense here in a second. But we have seen for loops before. It's doing a certain amount of times, doing something, whatever's in the loop, a certain number of times. But now, instead of hard coding the amount of times we want something to happen, we are going to use, well, when we get to arrays, which I think is one of these, this is just bringing back the for loop. Before, the for loop block sort of had this all locked in, but now we have the ability to change more things about it. And so the default is for variable I is 0, so I is going to start at 0, and it's going to keep going until I, so long as I is less than 4. So once I is 4, it's going to, FOUR, once I is 4, it will stop. It won't do what's in the block, and every time through it's going to increase 1, so it's going to do it this many times. And we need a for loop. We are going to console log every time through, console log the variable I, not the letter I, so no quotes. So it's going to loop through 4 times, and every time it's going to console log, it's going to print what i's value is every time through. Let's slow it down and see if that makes more sense. So it's checking to see if it's good, and then it's going to print whatever I was that time and that time through. And starting at 0, it prints I as 0, and then as it adds 1 to it and goes through, and once I is equal to 4, it stops, and that's why there's no 4 there at the bottom. Okay, let's see here. All right, so we're creating the default code here for Bubble 4 starts with they initialize a blank array, which is just creating a variable name equals and then open close bracket. Then they are adding items, adding 10 items to that array, and each one is going to be a random number 1 through 10. And what we need to do is bring out a for loop, and we want every time we want it to go through the entire array no matter how many there are. So instead of typing in the number of times that we want the loop to happen, we're just going to do the name of the loop dot length. Okay, and that's how many times it's going to happen. So if we doubled or increase the number of items, it wouldn't matter. It would still do however many items are in the array in the list. And every time through, we want to console log the item in the list, and each item, when this is made up, okay, so if we console log my array, it's going to give us let's try not spelling things correctly. There we go. It's going to give us the array. Actually, it's going to give it to us 10 times. Shouldn't have done that. But every time through, let's do it the way they actually wanted, which was to console log every value, every item in this array as it goes through the loop, however many times there are, once for every item in the array. So you can see here there's going to be 10 items, random numbers 1 through 10, and it's printed it. It's gone through this loop 10 times because there are 10 items, array.length. Okay, and so let's take a look here. Okay, updating values for possible to do this starter code. Provided create array of random values. You're also given a for loop. Okay, so let's start over. Okay, so from scratch we are given a blank array that once it runs is going to have 10 random numbers in it, and they've given us a console log that says before and then prints out everything in it. We are supposed to change that array, and after it's done changing, it's going to print out what we've done to it. We want, for everything that comes up in the initial array, we want to add 5 to it. So what we can do is do my array index I gets my array index I plus 5. Okay, so my array index I, the first time through, will be 0. So my array index I will be my array index 0, which will be the first thing in the list. And this idea of using the name of a list and its index refers to both the item in that slot of the box and to that slot in the box. Okay, so just like with regular variables, you could say var num gets 5. You can use that value of num, or you can reassign num a different value. And so using the name of the list or array and its index number, it's making its own, works the same way as its own variable. So here we are taking every time through, no matter how many items there are in the list, we're going to take that, and this needs to be I. Take whatever it is and get whatever it is, or change it to whatever it already is plus 5. And let's see if this works. Yes, there we go. Okay, so 7 becomes 12, 7 becomes 12, 9 to 14, and so on. Okay, so it's just going through our list every time, or once for every item in the list, and adding 5 to it. There's another way to do it, just like before. Plus plus is the same thing as adding 1 to itself, but we could do plus equals 5. Just means take whatever it is and add 5, which this should work the same way. Yeah. So each item in the list gets 5 more than it was before. It's the same as the other way of doing it. And okay, so divide by 2 is the same as before. We need to bring out our own for loop this time, not that hard. And we are going to take whatever we are starting with, which the array is called myArray still, and each item in it is going to be myArray index I, and we want to do it however many times there are, once for every item in the list, so myArray.length, and we want every item in that list to become whatever it was before divided by 2, which this should work. Yeah, 3 becomes 1.5, 10 becomes 5, and so on. And again, you can do that, or you can do myArray index I divide equals 2. It's just like before, we were doing plus equals, divide equals, plus plus. All those things are just shorthands. And same thing. Okay? So that was pretty... 5 and 6 are essentially asking the same thing. And okay, so we are now going to add an if statement into our loop. So we'll run a loop, and every time through the loop, we'll do something and also check for something. And so we have our starter code provided with an array that gives us random values, and console log values greater than plus myArray. Okay, starter code has been provided. Give us an array. Add a for loop that references every item. Add an if statement. Okay, so let's add our for loop, and we are going to do it. Whatever we're going to do, we're going to do myArray.length number of times. And what do we want to do? We want for every item, if myArray index I is greater than 5, console log console log itself. Yeah, itself, which is myArray index I. Okay, anything index I just means every time through, use that number as the reference point. Okay, so we ran our random array with 10 random numbers, and every time through, it's checking to see if that random number, if that item in the array is greater than 5, and if it is, it prints it. Otherwise, it just keeps going. Okay, hold on a second. Yeah, all right, that sounds like fun. I don't know if you guys can hear that in the background, but it's it sounds like there's fun going on out there. All right, so same. There's going to be a different number of values greater than 5 each time, but it's only going to print the ones that come through and are greater than 5. Okay, so let's do that. Let's have some background noise just for fun. And okay, hold on a second. Let me see here if this works. I will be right back. Okay, so hopefully that fixes things. Nope, that's not it. Let's go. All right, so let's see if everything's better now. Let's turn this back down. Okay, so for this one, we need general purpose functions. Okay, so we're going to use some functions to make it easier to do several things. And so we have starter code, similar pass levels. And we are, instead of having, you remember before, it had append item, random number. It had that written out 10 times. Anything that seems tedious in computer science, there's probably an easier way to do it. And in this case, the code is starting out with a for loop just to add 15 items to this list, which if we just run it right away, you can see there's 15 random numbers between 0 and 10, and we could do this with 100 or 10,000, or actually 10,000 might be beyond the ability of AppLab. But regardless, the point is before there were 10 lines of code dedicated to append item when we could just loop through. Okay, so we get to line 5 and we have an array with 10, or did it start out with 15? 15 random numbers between 0 and 10, and it's going to print it. Now we need to do something for that. We need add an if statement inside the for loop to check if the value of the array at current index is 5. Okay, so for every item in the list, if our list is called random array, so every item in the list, random array.length, if that item, which is random array index I, is equal to, double equal to 5, console log true, the word true. We're going to get to Booleans later where true is a value, not just the word true. And if it's not, that's where our else statement comes in. Okay, if that item in the array is not 5, we're going to have it print false. And let's see if this works. Okay, so did we get any 5s? We did not get any 5s that time, of course. We got 1 5, we got 2 5, so we should have, there you go, true and true. Works. Okay, so we are just checking, going through the list and checking some characteristic of each item in that list. Okay, so you can see how an if statement combined with a for loop can be very useful. And bubble 9, we are counting. for this one, we are going to counting the occurrences. And this would be much more common than just writing out true and false, but the idea is the same. They have given us a, how did I already do that? They have given us an array called test array that 10 times is going to get a random number, and it will print that out at the top when we run it at the top. Okay, the original array is that. Then it gives us a variable called 5count, and we're going to use it to count how many times fives occur in our list. So we're going to say if test array index I is equal to 5, then 5count, the name of our variable, 5count, not 5count, 5count gets 5count plus 1, so it's going to add 1 to it, and in this case we have 1, 5, and 0. Let's increase the number of items in the list to, let's say, 20, just to increase the likelihood. Okay, this list we have 3 number 5s, and again, this gets itself plus 1. We'll stick with the more common way, which is just 5count plus plus, go up by 1. And then after it runs this loop, once it goes through every item in the list, and checks every item in the list, that variable will now hold the number of 5s that there are in the list, and it will print it out here on this last line. Okay, there are no 5s in that, and so on. Okay, so bubble 10. So now we are getting into what are called Boolean values, which a variable can be a number, a string, an array is a variable, but a variable can also be sort of a just a yes/no situation that, to test essentially like a light switch. Is it on? Checking to see if it's on or off, and if it's on, do that. If it's not, do something else. But this is just introducing the idea of having something switch from true to false or vice versa. And so right now we are, just like before, are creating an array with 10 items in it that are, each item is going to be a random number, 0 to 10, same as before. New variable 5count, and we want here, so we need to add a console log. Oh, so this actually isn't that, it's something, it's similar. So at this point, instead of printing out the number of 5s, we're going to do is if, how do you check if there are any 5s? If the 5count, the value of 5count is greater than 0. Hold on. So 5count. Oh, so let's, hold on. We'll do 5count is false. So we will do this. If so this is actually going to work out like a Boolean, or as a Boolean. If test array index I is equal to 5, then 5count, which we are not going to use var, we're just going to 5count gets true. And let's change this to 5s. And there were no 5s here. Let's try this. Still no 5s. We should get, yeah. So as long as there are 1 5, so it's going through each item and checking to see if it is each item in the list, to check each item in the list and see if that item is a 5. And if it is a 5, it makes that variable, it switches the variable 5 count from false to true. If there's more than 1 5, it doesn't matter, because if something is true and you reassign it to true, it's still true. You're not, it's like the light switches on and you go to switch it on, it's still on. And here we are just putting out the value, whether it's true or false, which if we have fewer items in the list, we will get falses more likely. Okay, so that's our first introduction to Boolean, I think. Okay, so they are describing it as a flag, as in true or false, it's either up or down, and this is sort of like checking in a program. You check a state if there are, you start out with something false, and if a certain number of things happen, it goes to true, and then you have something else checking to see the value of that statement. And when it becomes true, it sets something else in motion, that sort of thing. In this case, we are going to do this. Implement the pseudocode in JavaScript. We've given you code instruction for loop. The output will be no different from the previous exercise, which is confirm. Okay. So we have test array, blank, blank, blank. Flag is false. You know what? I did the previous one the way we're supposed to do that.
Yeah, you went ahead one.
Yeah.
Yeah, the previous one you could have done with less than 0 and then
or greater, yeah, greater than 0.
plus plus for.
Okay, so var 5 count is 0. Sorry, we're going to go back and do this one. If test array I index I is 5 plus plus, and then test array, and then do we need to make, I forget, do we need to okay, so yeah, we put this down here. If 5 count, remember this is the one, this is bubble 10, we had to go back. If 5 count is greater than 0, then we console log true, else console log false. Okay, and we can, we're supposed to do this. Let's get rid of that, and let's also increase the number of items so we can see something happen. Let's go back to 15. Thank you, Mr. DeRusi. Okay, so no 5s, at least 1 5. Okay, so we're checking again to see if it's greater than 0. This was the solution for number 11 was what I did previously, which was we have a loop going through every item in our list of random numbers, and if, what is our list called? Test array is, if test array is equal to 5, flag gets true. Flange gets true. And then it's going to print out either true or false here. If it, because flag starts out as false, if nothing comes through as a 5, it completely ignores this part of the loop and just goes through the loop, and then at the end prints out false because nothing changed it. And here we have a list of 10 numbers with no 5s, and it prints out false, false. Hold on, did I just see a 5? Nope, print out flag. Var flag is true.
Test array index, I think, is what you need in there.
What do I need?
For
Test
the
array
if statement?
index. Yeah. Good call. Test array index I. Also, the number of times we should do it is test array dot length. Even though we are doing it 10 times, that works out. Let's see. There we go. Okay, so if there's a 5, it switches it to true, and once it's on true, we don't have any mechanism inside of here that would switch it back to false. So we are just checking to see if there's a 5. If it is, switches to true, and we keep going. Okay, just a couple more. Let's see here. What is coming down to it? Okay. So we are given a few arrays here to play around with. One array that has 5 numbers in it, or 6 numbers in it, with none of them are 5s. This one has other numbers where there is at least 1 5. The list is called 1 5. It has given us another blank array that 10 times we'll put in another item in that list, random 0 to 10, just like we have. And we have our flag set to false. And what do we need to do this? No, starter code. It creates 2 more arrays. Run the starter code, make sure it works as true. Okay. So we have, yes, this is the same as before. We're just double checking down here at the bottom. Yeah, there's 5, it works. Okay, create a new function. We're going to create a new function, and we will, let's put our function definitions down at the bottom just to keep them out of the way. And let's call this function, they want to call it search. And in this function, we want, we're going to put, the function is going to do our check for 5, so we'll put that in there. And this still needs to go down to the bottom. Let's put this here, just some space. And must move the Boolean variable inside the function, or it won't reset each time. Yes, okay, so when we run the function, we are resetting this to false, and we're going to run it multiple times. It will make sense in a second, hopefully. And we're going to call the function. Okay, so we have our play in the playbook, and we need to actually call the play, which is called search. And let's see if this works. Test array, search, function, search, flag. No, we put this in here. That's why. Yeah, because we initialize flag, the variable flag inside of the function, this console log outside was not able to access this variable because it was a local variable, so we need to keep it inside. And because we're going to end up calling this function a couple times, this function needs to be sort of self-contained. So we are just now checking with our random array whether or not it still works. The actual behavior will be same as first. Difference is now that you're calling a function to do it. Okay, this is just a setup for the next thing. You can see it's tied together. And so we want a function that we can give it any list, or the name of any list, and have it check for 5s, and then print out the list and tell us whether or not there are any 5s. So the way we can do that is by adding a parameter, and our parameter, it says call the parameter list, but I think that's a little vague. I'm going to call it list to check. Okay, and we are going to, no matter which list we are doing, we're going to use this we are going to use our for loop, whatever array, however many items there are in the array that we're given, and if the item in the array that we're given is equal to 5, we switch it to true. And because our function definition has a parameter in it, we need a parameter where we call it. And here, this is where we're going to pass through the name of the array, where if we pass through this one, if we copy the name of that one through, we should get, oh no, we don't, we want to, let's put this inside of here, and we'll call this original, and list to check. So this function right here works for any list that we give it, because it's only referencing what comes through as a parameter. Okay, that's the whole point of using parameters. It's letting the or it's making the function much more versatile. It's a tool you can use several different ways, or in multiple different occasions. So here we are checking the whatever array that we send to it. I don't know what's going on. Why am I? Whatever array we send to it, we are going to print it out, and it's going to check every item in that array to see if it's equal to 5. If it is, it will switch it to true. So this can work for any one of our any one of the lists that we have. So let's do 1, 5. Why do you think is my up arrow or my down arrow? Why do you think that's happening? Do I have a button mashed somewhere? Okay, so we're calling the same function 3 different times, sending through it maybe because I have scroll lock on. So each time we're calling it, we're giving it a different array to use. And the first array is no 5s, and it sends through this array, and there's no 5s. The second array that we're using is the 1, 5, and it's true, and then our random one is whatever comes through. So that whole idea of using parameters makes this function, or gives you the ability to write functions that are much more versatile. And just a couple more and we'll wrap it up. Alright, so yeah, this is what we came through with. And add a second parameter to your search to represent items to search for. Okay, so our function is receiving 2 parameters. List to check is the name of the list that we're going to send it every time we call it. And we need another parameter, let's call it looking for, and we're checking to see if every item in whatever list we send it is equal to this other parameter that we're sending to it. Okay, these parameters work like local variables that you can use that are going to be different every time it's called. And since we have 2 parameters in our definition, we need 2 parameters here, and we are going to call these with a, why is everything so weird? So each time we're going to look for a different number, and so has a, and then also we want it to print what we're looking for. So let's say has a, and then concat, let's close off that. We'll add that variable, the variable being called looking for, and add that. So we have a concatenation of array has a, and then whatever number we pass to it, and whether or not it has it. So first one, does it have a 5? False. Does this one have a 7? True. Does this one have a 10? False. Okay, and only the last one could possibly change because that's the only one with a random number. And the final bubble is finding a minimum. So the easiest way to do this is to create a, okay, so they have this, they call the function find min value, and it is receiving whatever array they want. In this case, the 3 arrays they've created up here. And we're starting out with, oh wait, this is already finished, I think. Yeah, this isn't tied to the ones before because it's different. Okay, so we need to create a function that accepts basic, oh wait, we already have this. Do this, starter code. We have find min val. Okay, we're just going to work through this. Okay, so we have a variable called min val, and let us start by, okay, so this is all inside the function min val. I am going to start by giving min val the value, so equals list index 0. Okay, what this does is it's changing, we're creating a variable called min val, and we're giving it the the value of the first slot of that list, and then for every item in that list we are going to check if list index I is less than min val. We are going to give that value to min val. Min val gets list index I. Okay, so this way it will keep replacing the variable min val with, it will change it to the new value if it's lower. Otherwise it just skips over this if, and this should work. Let's just run this for one of them. Let's comment these out. Let's make this a little tighter. Okay, that's fine. And so here, this is our random. I'm only running it for array random, which has 10 items between 0 and 100. And it's printing out the entire list. And it's going through each item in the list and checking to see if that current item is lower than the previous lowest one. And if it is, that variable gets that new lower value, and then it checks that against the next one and goes through each one and only keeps, the only piece of information we're keeping is the lowest lowest value in that list. And you see here 2 is the lowest one there, and so on. Okay, so I think that should be it for lesson 15. Hopefully you understand what's going on. If you don't, obviously questions are answered generally. Let's see if Mr. DeRusi, do you know if there are any new questions on the forum? On the forum?
It looks like there might be 2 new ones on there that came in today. Yeah, there's 2 new ones on there, maybe 3. Good look at that.
Let's see here. Let's put this over here. Okay, it's a computational artifact that advertises your computer. No, it the computational artifact explains how the computing innovation works. Okay, it's an explanatory poster or video, but I definitely recommend like a single PowerPoint slide to make a poster type of thing. For the image scroller app, will it be graded on delete button? Let's see here. It was essentially if, hold on, did I say that we need the delete button? I do believe that I said you need the delete button. You don't necessarily have to have the confirmation screen like I demonstrated, but you do need a delete button on your image scroller. And yes, it is due Tuesday. So you have 6.5 more hours to complete everything up through lesson 14. Okay, it doesn't look like there are any questions in chat, so I think we're just going to go ahead and call it there. Mr. Rusi, do you have anything else to add?
No, I'm all set.
Okay, we'll figure out what time we're going to stream tomorrow, I think. We'll probably have it up sometime today, this evening, and we'll continue on with lesson 16 and 17 the next day, probably. We may need to take a day off to do grading, but we'll, just like before, we'll post it in the new classroom page here somewhere, or at the top, sometime tonight. Okay? All right, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Adios.